Switch up glasses here.
Peace, peace, peace. Seed talk. Stuff to make your seeds walk. Um, Precious is gonna be joining us in a little bit. She got to get off work and whatnot. Bobby said this is right up her alley. And an entire show about the untimely death of Kevin Samuels. Bobby said this is right up her alley, and
Mhm.
I guess we'll see in a little bit. Um, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and and tag some people and whatnot. Um, because I think we're gonna have a pretty interesting show, and I think it's gonna come back again to um, what do we do when people pass away in our community that we don't agree with their politics or agree with the choices they made in their lives. Like, how do we respond? Like, what's the appropriate way to respond? And what does it tell us as about ourselves as a community based on how we react and whatnot? And I just think it's really interesting with this is because I think it's I think it's interesting. And it doesn't surprise me though. It doesn't surprise me that women or some certain people would celebrate his death, make jokes about it. That didn't surprise me. What surprised me the most, and y'all might not trust this or not, but some men are literally calling this guy a prophet, like almost I'm like a martyr. And I'm not laughing because he died. I'm laughing because I just didn't see that one coming. I just didn't. I saw that they would really praise him and be like, "Oh man, rest in peace." Blah blah blah. You did so much good stuff. You told it like it was, man. You told the truth. That's why people didn't like you. But I heard some dude said the prophet Kevin Samuels. I said, Lord have mercy.
That's
Like,
awesome.
oh man.
That's awesome. So stupid.
Well, I just, I can just trust when I pass away that I will have those martyr qualities too. You know what I'm saying? But I want to, let's go ahead and let's tag some people, get in the comments. Um, anyone can chime in. I mean, do you think it's appropriate? It's okay that people were number one celebrating the death of Kevin Samuels.
Trisha, you've been on it all week. You gotta leave.
Okay.
You've been on this all week, Trisha.
I know.
Trisha said she
I
went my
think,
viral. You said you went viral and you had like thousands of
yeah, I
likes
had a
because the
post that,
Samuelites were mad at you. The Samuelites.
yeah, someone shared. So I made a post that someone, or not someone, I think like about 500 people shared, and then those people shared, and then suddenly I didn't even realize it, and then suddenly in my DMs, because I have two separate ones, for one for unknown people and the people that I do know, and I decided to look into the unknown, and it was primarily, unfortunately, black males threatening either to kill me or telling me that I'm a bee and I'm ugly, but and I'm like, wow, what is this? And then Precious tagged me somewhere else that was like, oh wow, your post went viral. I'm like, okay. But and the post was primarily about, because I had listened to something that he had said about his own mother before he passed, about the fact that she selected, I guess, his father, who had 10 kids with 10 women, and essentially saying his mom was trash for doing something like that. And for me, it was like, wow, as a mother, you still love your child, but it's also difficult for a child to say negative things about choices that you've made, particularly in terms of their creation and survival. And I thought that that was disrespectful, just as disrespectful as, I guess, finding out, that he passed away online. But it's also pretty traumatic to find out that your adult child is talking essentially trash about you and your choices. So, yeah, just juxtaposing those two things. But I feel as if um, people react the way that they need to react. And I know we have a saying of don't speak ill of the dead, but it's not don't tell the truth about people that passed away. and it's not, specific to the Black community, because when Rush Limbaugh died, there is no too soon anymore, I guess, with social media now, that, the second after, there's always going to be a group of people that are upset. And it's just disappointing, that it feels as if primarily Black women are being monitored in terms of how we should react, by the same people that, I remember there was yeah, and even bringing things in like, yeah, well, Breonna Taylor should have died, and it's like, what does that have to do with this? Yeah, there were posts comparing him to Martin Luther King, others saying that, well, Black women act like this, and that's why Breonna Taylor died. And you're like, what did the two have to do with
I seen
another?
I seen a picture of him, MLK, and Malcolm X.
I've seen him and Tupac in heaven, as well. And I'm like, Tupac wrote Dear Mama. So, hey, I could see him being there, but he didn't. He wrote literally the antithesis of something like Dear Mama. Like, so yeah, the bad Black art that's coming out of this is also.
She said the bad Black art.
It's bad. It's bad. Martin Luther King and him, Malcolm X and him. And I mean, Malcolm X was about, Black women not being protected. I don't think Malcolm X would be like welcoming based on the things that it's saying, just weird.
Saying that they were all truth tellers. I guess that's what, Kevin Samuels to a lot of these men was a man who was not afraid to tell the truth about certain things. And they said, like, tell me when he was wrong. And it really bothers me because, people do this dance with data and statistics, and they think just because someone threw out some stats that the stats are number one contextual and number two are true. You know what I'm saying? And I just, for me, I was really, surprised that men, specifically Black men, were kind of, overrating and being hyperbolic when it comes to his, his community building. To me, he didn't seem like a person who was a community builder at all. He, stuck to very, strong Eurocentric standards and standards of beauty and was really based a lot of his assessment and value, specifically of Black women, but he did it to Black men too. His value was assessed by, what they look like aesthetically and how much money you make. And I think that was definitely problematic. But after reflecting a little bit more on it, I think for me, it was just a visceral response because I was so surprised that, he looked so well. He looked, good for his age. I know he had beat cancer at one point. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was, and then he had a couple failed marriages and whatnot. So my thing was I identified with a failed marriage. I also identified with the hurt that comes with that. But I also identified that him being such a, relatively a young man at 56 years of age. And that's like right around the corner for me, so it's just like, dang, you know what I mean? It really surprised me and hit me in a visceral way like that. That's why no matter what, like I thought a lot of the stuff that he said was absolutely ridiculous. And I'm sitting there watching. I found myself watching his podcast just so I could debunk him and break him down and be like, man, if Black men want to follow somebody, it should not be him. This is not, how to manage, your emotions when it comes to women. This is not a good a good approach when it comes to developing and maintaining a relationship, especially with other Black people. And, don't be distracted to the fact that, women are actually calling for his advice, because once he has those women there, he could be telling them something that's totally different. You know what I'm saying? And way more healthy than he was. And I think a lot of people hung their hat on, well, there were women always calling him. The men called there. He wasn't forcing anyone to, call him. But if you study his brand over the years, he did change his brand to be more popular. And he found out that calling Black women specifically things like linebacker or, making fun of their weight and having these little jest comments, he understood very, very soon when he was making his transition that that would be more explosive. That will render more, likes. It will render more views. So for me, when I watched him back in the day talking about, how to take your favorite cologne with you and being an image consultant, and then his brand totally changes when he goes viral for saying some just, really, really insensitive things, to a Black woman, no matter if he asked her to rate herself and she rated herself like a 6 or something like that. But he doubled down and he piled on to it. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing when he was calling Black women who are, I don't know, he would ask them their size and then their weight, and then he would get off and call them a linebacker and stuff. He knew what he was doing when he was cutting people off, primarily Black women, cutting them off, and not letting them speak when they're making good points. He knew what he was doing when he called the brother a fat fuck on that one episode and said he had a little dick. He knew what he was doing, and he knew that people will be charged up. Like, I can't wait to see what Kev's gonna say again about this person. All the while ignoring the fact that he was a very average man, very average, and not to be ironic, but you're dead at 56.
Yeah,
that only not only not makes you just average, that makes you
73, 71. I think that's average for Black men. But yeah, like to your point, I think that was the one thing that really shook me about his platform was that the disciples of the platform were often not the men that he was speaking on. So if you can imagine, there's a platform that exists for a single person like a LeBron James a decade ago, okay? Or 15 years ago, last time he was single. It would make more sense to me if it was a subscription-based service that Dwayne Wade and LeBron and these Black men who are extremely successful only had access to, and it was conversation with women who wanted to date men like that for men like that. But that's not what his platform was. His platform was a show for everyday men, a lot of them Black, who didn't possess any elite skills at all, to watch their peers, and don't be offended by this, but to watch their peers, so normal Black women, be brought down a notch. And that projection made them feel better. Mm-hmm. Which was weird to me, like I was saying, because I don't think that I'm a high value man. I don't want to put that out there for anyone who thinks that who thinks I'm high value or anything like that, because I'm not. But I'm also 32, right? And his whole thing was, you're going to be an older man, you're going to date a younger woman, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like the way that he was talking was so amazing to me, because if you are one of these men that's normal and average, you also understand that he was saying you don't deserve a good partner. So I always found it really strange that his whole spiel was that elite people deserve other elite people, but non-elite people is who watched and patronized the show. That was amazing to me. So I'll never understand that. And then to have these same average Joes, and there's nothing wrong with being an average Joe, to have those same people call him a prophet or a disciple is ironic, because he don't care about you. He doesn't care about you. He don't want anything elite for you. I'm going to argue on my behalf. I have an elite Black woman in my house. She's 24. She owns her own business. She's the manager at a hotel. She has a college degree. Now, Kevin would be like, oh, brother, you can't hold that down, because there's another Black man out there who makes double your salaries 10 years older. She got to get up out of your house. So how far are we willing to take this because if you really apply the standards, no one is ever safe.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's like a lot more qualities that the person you're in a relationship would have that makes her an elite woman according to
I'm using his standards.
Yeah,
though.
yeah, okay. But what I'm saying is, yes, his standard and his rubric was always based on those very Eurocentric, very limited, very marginalized, um, standards, but it had nothing to do with being a good person.
What does that mean?
Nothing. Nothing. It had nothing to do with your ability to resolve and mediate conflict. It had nothing. I mean, every now and again, he would say, you need to go to counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all need to do therapy. That's why you need to do therapy. But that's almost like he just kind of like threw it out there. Just thought, oh, yeah, you need to do therapy. But didn't. And there was a one sister that pushed back on him real tough and said, oh, you talking about we need to do therapy, but you're telling me to go to a therapist where there's a lot of therapists that don't look like me. So that in itself is not solving my problems, because a therapist is not going to look through a lens of a person who's been oppressed and, suffers, PTSD and blah, 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 being a Black person in America. So, people used to always say, oh, Kevin Samuels, man, he makes a lot of good points. And I always used to tell him, yeah, I can give you a box of nails with a whole bunch of, sharp points and good points, but I have not taught you how to build a house. I mean, and that's just period, point blank. And it's one thing for you to teach high quality women to how to get with high quality men, but he wasn't telling you how to stay in a relationship, meet each other's needs and whatnot. He was exactly what he told you he was. And people always overlooked it. He was a hustler. He told you that his career started as an image consultant. He told you in one of his interviews that he literally hired an escort to go to a company, company gathering, and he was trying to get a promotion. And he did this on purpose because when he brought this escort woman there, he found out that the people that were above him that could give him his promotion had also took her out too and paid good money. And the fact that he came there with her on his arm shows that he had enough money to afford what they can afford. He said it led to him getting a promotion. I don't know if he was lying or not, but anyways, but the whole point that someone would go through that hustle and that level of being an image consultant to only present the image, imaginary, you know what I'm saying? The image that they're really more important and put together than they really are, speaks volumes of his brand. And I'm with you, Bobby. And I want Doc to jump in here too. I'm with you. Number one, I never heard him rate himself. Now, my homeboy Al C said that he rated himself at one point as a 6. He rated himself as a 6. I was like, oh, okay. Because I'm looking at, before he even died, I'm like, bro, I don't see how you're an 8, 9, or I don't see how you're a high value man. And he has this whole criteria of what a high value man is that he borrowed, of course, from a colonizer, from a white man. But like you said, though, to add on to what you said, though, Bobby, I know most of the people who were following him were not high value men. He was actually making fun of you too. But the thing is, he sounded like a grumpy, older Black man who always had this on his chest. He needed to get it off his chest about Black women, how they have done him so wrong. And now he finally gets to tell them how it is. He says something to the degree, what have women created? What have they ever invented? I said, oh my Lord, this man is, he just seemed so angry and so, but first and foremost, he just seemed like he was really hurt. Really, really hurt. What you think, Doc? Because I want to get back to it. Is it appropriate for us to celebrate the death of a person who had no filter?
It's appropriate to work through grief or anger in a way that helps you to unpack it. So I'm I don't think we should be telling certain communities that felt attacked through his misogyny how they should react, any more than I could tell people how they should have reacted when Rush Limbaugh or that last Supreme Court justice when he died, when people were celebrating
And Consalia.
Okay, people were happy. Particularly our community was happy, thinking that yay, we can get someone else. So why is he any different than anyone else? I also think it's interesting that we say that he became an image consultant. He studied chemical engineering in college. He graduated with a degree in chemical engineering, not psychology, not sociology, not an LMFT. So I don't even know how you even jump to be an image consultant based on a career education in chemical engineering. I mean, my background's in aerospace engineering. I would not decide that I'm an image consultant based on it. So he either had a lot of hubris or I just don't get that. And when you're saying that he's saying, what have women, created? It's
Like
like he wasn't even awake during his engineering program, because I could probably have pointed. They do tell you about contributions that women have made. Yeah, it's I only feel for his mother and his daughter. For everyone else, and I mean, maybe out of respect for them, not to celebrate or appear like you're celebrating, but in terms of appropriate to celebrate, I think whenever people feel the need, that's unfortunately one of the I was about to think in Dutch. One of the negatives about social media is that people can instantly share their first reaction across the world, and that may come off as rude or condescending to fans. But on the other hand, based on our reaction, like for example, I had messages from men in their 20s that were angry at me for an opinion that and he went this long explanation about he can never make 45,000 over 45,000 a year, and that's why he can't get a woman, and that's why all Black women are bitches. That's why he enjoyed watching. And I'm like, how do you go from that? First of all, why are you explaining this to me, that this is your justification for telling me that I'm old and ugly and need to die? I don't have an opinion. And secondly, it also made me realize, because there were so many messages, there are I used to think, because there are more Black women than Black men, that they have so much selection. But I realized there are a lot of involuntarily celibate men of a certain age range, and they're angry. They're really angry, and because they feel like they deserve a woman and they're not getting that woman, they're very angry at any woman that they feel like they're rejecting them because they don't make a certain income, they don't look a certain way, and there's so many of them that are so angry, and they're directing all that hatred. Well, they had him, I guess, to direct that hatred to the women that were coming on the show or being evaluated. But now without him there, it's like they don't know where to direct it, but they're directing it at individual women based on their reactions to this.
Doc, what did your post actually say that got people riled up? Do you remember what it said?
Essentially that it was sad that he said so many disparaging things about his mother, that he was estranged from his daughter, wouldn't pay for her college, and this is how they had to find out about him passing. For someone that was high value, it didn't look like, because he didn't have like an emergency conduct, all this, he didn't have his financial ducks in the row. I'm on that same corner in terms of age. These are things that I think of for my kids when something happens to me, even in terms of who to call, but none of that seemed to be arranged. And that's irresponsible. How is that a high value man, is particularly to do that to your, I would say your mother, to embarrass her and humiliate her that way. And then it's Mother's Day weekend, and so that's what I said, and that apparently made many involuntarily celibate men under the age of 30 very upset.
So I have a question for Trisha, Logic. Do you think that there is any equality? And this is going to be a crass comparison, so just be patient, I guess. I do think that there is a lot of market capitalism and opportunities around black people not liking each other.
Mm-hmm.
When I remember there was one of the city girls one time posted on her story or on her social media essentially that she's only saying these lyrics for our entertainment, but in reality she wanted to be married and she wanted to have a family.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that basically this entire persona is cap, but you understand that it pays and that there's some white A&R or whatever at some record label who's saying, you know what pays is division amongst the Negroes. And I sometimes wonder if this brand, if Kevin Samuels is not just one of the city girls. And I'm saying that intentionally because it's that same sort of professional pettiness and professional vigor for humiliating your peers on the other side of the gender coin that seems to be the thing that pays the most. Yeah. And I was wondering if you saw those things as similar or if they're different.
What's your question?
I see, I do see them as similar, but I think the amount of aggression and hatred that's added to it, and that energy takes it to a different level towards women than men. Like, even in terms of this, there are women, like, based on how his behavior was, making jokes. For the most part, they aren't saying, and I'm going to kill you and you deserve to die. But conversely, these involuntarily celibate gentlemen who send messages that were his fans, they're sending messages of threats of, and you deserve, that's why he said, and the aggression piece. But what you were saying also in terms of, we're encouraged to dislike one another. I was starting to think also in terms of like the dating apps and things. They're really made for you not to find someone, because otherwise they wouldn't make money. So a lot of things are set up so that people don't connect and don't, they are aggressive and violent towards one another, because you aren't meant to. I mean, those things like match and all that, if everyone met someone instantly, they would be out of business. So, they need that aggression and dislike towards one another.
Yeah. Welcome, Precious. I agree that it's the same. They share a lot of intersection. Now, I can't necessarily say I've ever watched anything where Kevin Samuels directly and overtly was promoting like to physically harm women, specifically Black women. I don't remember any. I have never seen that. So it probably exists. I know you're gonna say that, but hold on. Let me finish this real quick. The point I'm trying to make is when you start objectifying each other as men and women, as human beings in this crass consumer capitalist economy, I would argue that it has the same result. That it's a form of violence at some point when your relationship is based on objectifying each other and it's based on pleasure and not finding peace. So a lot of what Kevin Samuels was saying was based on objectifying someone by how much they weigh, how tall they are, how much money they make. A lot of respectability politics was in his message, in his narrative, saying men don't cheat. They just exercise their options. A whole bunch of phony, bony stuff, man, just to basically uplift and maintain the patriarchy. I mean, that was his whole brand and his whole platform. And then when you got women like like Meg or Cardi or any other women like what we said, the Cali Girls or something, right?
I would say the City Girls. I don't know
City
them.
Girls, City Girls, where their main, you know what I'm saying, brand is, you know, the objectifying of themselves and other people, having sex and the pleasure of it all. Yes, I think it is. If they had a, you know, opportunity to make a different kind of music, then they would, knowing that they would still make money. So we ended up making product to make money. And we see that a lot. And I mean, that's the whole science, right, behind commercializing something, you know. But as if we as consumers, this is a good segue to what I really want to say. If we as consumer changed the type of things that we would consume, I think it would have an impact on what these people produce.
I can agree with that. I said that many times. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
but we
we
like the sugary cereal. We like it. We like the Cocoa Puffs. We like the Lucky Charms. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're consumers, and when we go into the store, we go that route instead of eating like maybe, you know, fruits and vegetables. That's what we choose, you know what I'm saying, as, you know, our brand to consume. We want the sugary stuff, the stuff that's not always good for us. We like fast food. We like fast food relationship gurus. We like fast food, you know, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Fast food approaches on how to have sex and how to love each other. You know, tantra sex is not a booming business, but pornography is. I'm willing to bet my paycheck that tantra sex does not sell as much. You know what I'm saying? You know, views and attention than like pornography does. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I'm gonna just say this, and then I gotta get Precious. We gotta get Precious in the game.
Yeah.
But to me, where the comparison fails is that if we go with your analogy, it's not specific enough with race, because what's happening is that you're not listening to music from white men about killing other white men. You're not watching, not all TV shows that involve white characters and white people involve the destruction of other white people. You can have a TV show with white folks that is about white families and joy, but all of the things that are marketed to Black people are based on our reactions to trauma and our reactions to poverty. That's Power. That's all the shows, Snowfall. That's all the songs on the radio. It's all the same to me. Like, this is in that same vein of destruction and self-loathing, frankly. But I don't see that for white folks. So it's hard for me to make the comparison on a grander scale. But that's my view, though.
There's quite a few shows that show white people hurting other white people.
Is that the only show that exists, though?
No, it's not the only show. I would definitely say there's more of a balance when it comes to
proportionality.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, Sopranos and The Wire, and The Wire wasn't showing. Well, it was showing the corruptness, Billions. I mean, there's quite a few shows out there. You know, I'd have to sit back and reflect on it, but there's quite a few shows that normalize the hurt that, you know, white people do towards each other out there. I mean, hurt is it sells.
Sure.
Bucks. What you think, Precious?
Well, thank you for letting me on the show. Sorry, I'm late. I had to make my coin, but I come on the show. So
had to get the bag.
I had to get the bag. They called me. I said, hell, let me clap this real quick. So that's how I run to do that. So let me just address the question at hand. Is it appropriate for some people to celebrate the death of Kevin Samuels? In my mentality, when I think of celebration, I'm thinking somebody popping the core, having a barbecue, and having all kind of friends or with invitations out. I ain't seen none of that. I have yet seen anyone say, you know what, I'm glad he did. I have not seen anything. If anything, people was pointing out the irony of his passing. If anything, what I mostly have been seeing. When I first heard the news, I said, you know what, social media has a knack for not being honest, sometimes to put false statements out. I ain't gonna pay no mind to this. So it was like literally maybe a good 3-4 hours later when they finally kind of started letting the news out. And all I thought to myself is, ain't that something? And then as the events start to reveal itself, start revealing the events surrounding his passing, all I thought was, how ironic is that? Because this man had went on his own platform threatening women due to their undesirable traits. You're going to die bitter and alone. But the gag was, he was a walking testament of that exact same thing. So it's so much irony in all this. And he put himself as a high value man. Oh, okay. But last I checked, high value people actually maintain good relationship with the people in their life. At least healthy relationships.
Not according to his definition. That's
according to that's what I'm saying. His definition was very rooted in patriarchy, misogyny, and white supremacy to a sense. It was rooted in all of that. So I find it so crazy how so many people was following or at least gobbling that up. And personally, but I think most of us with a mind of sense knew that majority of the things she was saying didn't make no sense. I think the only one he resonated with is what we call incels in this day and age, is what we're calling them right now. I mean, I just knew terminology. I just learned. I didn't know there was a name for it, but apparently there's a terminology for that.
Involuntarily celibate. Yes.
And do I find it appropriate that people celebrating his death? Well, it is appropriate to celebrate anyone's death in general, because the way I look at mourning people, it involves feelings. So if you never felt for somebody, what exactly are you going to be celebrating if you didn't give a damn in the first place? If anything, at this situation is, what I find another irony is how a lot of his supporters or followers were saying how he was really just trying to bring the black man and black woman together. I'm sorry for the points I did. I didn't see none of that. Like, what does bringing us together got to do with superficial stuff like weight, size, height, money? What that got to do with that? That's not what's holding us back. Those are not the issues in our community. So I would say he wasn't doing no community building. He wasn't doing no healing or any restoring. I personally believe he was trauma bonding with his followers.
Yeah.
That's really all he was doing the whole time. And frankly, I'm gonna go ahead and take it that step further. I don't think they're mad that black women don't care about his passing. I think they're mad because they realize he's been lying to them this entire time about who he really was. And when you maintain lies, who you are online and who we're not offline, that's a lot of stress, because you have to maintain that image that you were just talking. I cut the last end of it. That image you're trying to imitate, that you're trying to promote to people, but you're not that in real life.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine the anxiety and stress that he had to go through to maintain that.
Yeah, I don't know the details. I don't know what can be actually proven. But I was told, now I don't know if it's true or not, that he died in an apartment. So I think a lot of these places that he was at were kind of like staged, unless he has these, these different rooms in that one apartment. I don't know. He might have moved. I don't know. I don't know the details. And there was there's another account and report that came out that he died with less than $1,000. I don't know. Said he was in debt. I don't know. I mean, he was getting thousands and hundreds of thousands. And at one point, I think at least one clip went viral. So he was getting checks from YouTube. That's for sure. That's facts. But I don't know how he manages money at all. And then they saying that the cardiac arrest, I don't know if it's true or not, but was a result of cocaine laced fentanyl. I don't know if that's true or not. I ain't gonna lie, I wasn't even trying to be funny, but the first thing I thought of was those Red Bulls. I thought about the Red Bulls that he drinks on every single show, but I didn't know that it could be that bad that drinking Red Bulls can cause you to go into cardiac arrest.
Drinking a lot of the little energy drink, because it kind of boosts up your heart rate a little bit, kind of like that caffeine kind of does. That's why I personally don't do caffeine, because it does rush it up. And he was an older man, and there's no telling how well he was taking care of himself. And this is another thing. Just because somebody's skinny don't necessarily mean they're healthy.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, he had beat cancer before. He had beat cancer once in his life. But then, they started having the commentary about the woman that he was with, a woman of color who was quote unquote plus size. So kind of against a lot of his philosophies, that he was, promoting on his show. You know what I'm saying? There was a rumor that, someone said she's a nurse, but then I heard something else that he had paid her, to be there the night. I don't know. I don't know how people are getting all this stuff, But my thing is this: is the reaction that Trisha got from her post, of people threatening her and saying all these mean things to her, calling her out of her name. That's the main thing for me. That I'm not saying like certain groups of people, shouldn't celebrate it. Go ahead, do it. But I'm like, I just questioned what is the celebration for when his legacy continues and you have, a whole, group of men and followers and disciples of his philosophy that are continuing his work. And for me, the celebration would really be if we have a group of healthy men who are speaking the complete opposite of him and, teaching us emotional intelligence, how to create safe places for us to heal. Like the death of a person who was so patriarchal and so insensitive and mean at some point, who was doing a lot more hurt than he was healing to me. And that he has a group of people who are even more energized in his death, like treating this guy like a martyr. That's not reason for me to celebrate. Reason for me to celebrate is, can we get some exposure of some people, some men, specifically black men? Because that's what we really need, is more black men that are in the forefront and very popular, like a Kevin Samuels, that create safe places for us to heal. That's a celebration for me. So if you know of any, platforms that are out there in the internet and social media where black men are actually doing that, not like the Derek Jacksons or anything like that, more stuff like, what we do here on C Talk, what I'm saying? Talking about how to, heal our hurt and creating safe places for us to heal. Can you please put their names in the comments? Because I want that's a celebration.
Absolutely. I have a list. I have like a literally a page full of positive black male podcasts and TikTok page. I have to put them in my on the chat. I definitely follow a lot of them, and they are very positive. What I was about to say, I lost my train of thought. I was looking at the comments.
Yeah, I wanted to read a couple comments real quick. I wanted to get to this one comment that Michael was saying, because he, he did talk stuff about men too. He did.
He did, and you know what? And I was listening to some people who were revealing something that kept. I didn't follow that dude. I didn't follow none that he said, but it's so interesting that how apparently at one point Kevin Samuel asked a man about his penis size, which I find so thrown off, because let's be a little blunt, most black males are very homophobic, so I find it very interesting they let that slide for him to ask that type of question. But let that been the flip side, especially if a black woman say his penis is small, they got all the rage, they got all type of rage. So I find it so interesting and so hypocritical that they didn't find nothing wrong with that man asking another man about his penis size. That's so invasive and irrelevant to his. I find it so invasive.
Yeah. Do y'all think that sometimes? Do you think that those calls were staged? That's one of my theories. Because if you know, like shock radio or like reality TV, a lot of that stuff is scripted. If not all of it is scripted. Like even like the Jerry, what's the dude's name? Jerry,
Springer.
Yeah, Jerry Springer. Yeah. That's scripted. The producers tell people to do certain things. I can't hear you, Bobby.
Oh,
Bobby's saying something. I can't hear him. You're muted.
Steve Wilkos? Is that where you're going?
Yes.
Yeah, all those guys. They're, they've been outed many times that their stuff is scripted, and the reality show people are definitely been outed. That they're scripted. I think a lot of those people that were calling in, I really do think that they were staged. I really do.
I do too.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter if they were staged or not, because what he was promoting, you know what I'm saying, was real to some people. And that's why I felt kind of guilty watching it sometimes, because I'm smart enough to know, like, and I'm a scholar enough to know to debunk a lot of his stats and his data. I took a lot of it as comedy, you know what I'm saying? But I felt guilty watching it and laughing, because a lot of these people who are looking at him as a prophet and as a martyr now, that stuff was real deal Holyfield for them. Like that was the gospel. There was nothing funny about it. There was nothing outlandish about it. So I did feel guilty about that. Like I'm laughing at it, but knowing that there's some ignorant people that are literally taking this tinfoil as gold. Michael Carter said he did all the same thing to us men. The only difference is that us men didn't have an emotional reaction to the negative stuff he said. They either ignored him or tried to live up to what he said was a high value man. The woman made him rich and made him go viral because they couldn't handle or ignore the negative stuff he said about them like the men he did. I understand what he's saying. I just disagree with that. I think the men were very emotional. I think Kevin
Yeah, they were.
Very emotional. Yes.
I think Kevin Samuels was a very emotional man. I feel like the things that he said to women was because he was hurt and he was angry. Those are emotions. And he used certain statistics, you know what I'm saying, you know, to like try to make his emotions logic, but he wasn't fooling anybody. To me, he wasn't. To me, he wasn't. You know what? He came across as a spoiled kid who always wanted his way. And spoiled kids are very emotional. When you say stuff like it's not cheating, it's just a high value man doesn't cheat. He's just exercising his options. Cut it out. That just screams, I just want my way. I'm throwing a tantrum. You know what I mean? And the way that he would cut women off on the show when they would try to make a good point. Hey, no, you called my show. This is how it's going to go. I get to talk. There's nothing civil about that. There's nothing logical about you cutting someone off when they have a good point. That's totally emotional. So I don't think Sam was that as logical as his followers want to make it seem like he was. Tiana said, knowing that people take his advice seriously was the biggest issue. I know better. Too many don't see through the many layers of that brother. So
Can I say something though? This
please.
is the one thing I was looking at. I said, this go to show when you spew out such negativity and animosity and hatred out into the world, you're not doing anything but poisoning yourself. We talk about this industry that we're in, but I think the real industry that's profiting is self-destruction. That's the real industry that's probably winning here. And this kind of situation kind of remind me of Janet Huber, aka the dark-skinned Vivian from Freshman to Bel Air. I remember when she went into the hospital, I think it was last year, for chest pains herself. And I remember her saying how all that animosity and resentment and that angerness that she had from what took place behind the Fresh Prince of Bel Air took such a toll on her health. It had such a big effect on her heart. And honestly, I think that's what happened with him. He never went to got therapy for any of the pain that he felt that hindered him, or where he felt in life. That instead of doing that, he turned to the world and spewed that out, and it echoed to people who resonated with him. And
Yeah.
In other words, he created a very toxic environment for himself. And it's one thing about social media, especially from a lot of TikTokers, that say if you're not careful as a creator, you tend to fall down this rabbit hole that you can't get out of, especially if people are feasting you and they're liking everything you're doing. Even if it's negative, they will keep feasting off of you, and you just fall deep in that rabbit hole, and you can't get your ass out that hole. Yeah. And I really think that's what happened to him. He can't, even if he probably didn't want to stop, he couldn't stop.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're right, Precious, because I did watch like during Black History Month, he tried. There was one episode he tried to like do this whole thing about Malcolm and do a whole episode on Black History Month. And like I said, I've watched episodes before he, started his new brand of insulting people and just, keeping it real. Like I'm able to compartmentalize him, even though I didn't agree with him. I did like and appreciate his hustle. He had a hustle. Like there's stories that he used to stand out in front of like the East St. Laurent, store in Atlanta, and just stand out trying to get clients that will come into the store, you know what I'm saying? So he could be their image consultant. And then he finally got it to the point where he wasn't just standing out there. He was actually making the actual money to actually buy something from the store, And so he created this brand. I did appreciate his hustle and how he got down in that regard. That's one way I identify with him. And I also identify with, man, failed marriage, one for me, but you have 2 or 3 failed marriage, that can change your life for the worse. And I like what you said, Pressure. I think that he knew that he could benefit financially from keep, producing the hurt. And that's what, he stood by. Like him teaching you how to put cologne on, you know what I'm saying, throughout the day. It wasn't selling. It wasn't selling as much as him being an image consultant and teaching guys how to, quote, bag chicks. That's a very, very popular lane right now. Teaching guys how to get women, trick them into relationships. That's why books like, Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power and The Art of Seduction, that's why books like that are so popular amongst, con artists and businessmen and car salesmen, how to trick people into it, like knowing you're not that high value of a man, or a person in general, but you're able to trick people to be in these relationships with you. It's like, okay, you're not smarter than me. I'm going to trick you into, thinking I'm something I'm not. Let me run something else by y'all real quick. Do y'all think some people are saying they have a conspiracy theory that he was assassinated? What do y'all think?
Out of 350 million people in America, they point out Kevin Samuels, who's problematic. I mean,
you don't think that there are women out there that were upset with him and what he did?
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of women out there who probably were upset with the things that he said, but do you think it's enough for a woman to say, you know what, go knock this nigga off for us? Really?
I don't think it's a reach. I don't think
we have so many. I mean, there's so many. Most of us but if we killed everyone that was using misogynistic, and why him? I mean, there was just an article, I think, 2 or 3 days before he died, saying that he should be canceled, but that was more like figuratively canceled because of the problematic things he said and did. And I have to always point out the whole not believing your kids when they say that your boyfriend or husband is molesting them. That was the end for me. These people that are like, he spoke truth sometimes. Was he speaking truth then too about don't believe your kids when they're saying they're being molested? And what's also sad about this is, okay, someone who's he was a little older than me, almost the same age as him, the love and approval that he was getting from his fans with appreciating his podcast. He had a whole adult estranged daughter. That's the person that he should have tried to, repair a relationship with. And now, unfortunately, he's passed away and not going to have the ability to repair that relationship with her. And even when you're talking about, he had $1,000 in a checking account. Unfortunately, as also like him being a divorced person twice, I also know sometimes some men being petty, sometimes they like to hide their money and put it all kinds of places. And you got to hope they don't pass away because at some point it needs to be found. So, one side of me thinks that, yeah, maybe he was broke, but another is like, he's probably smart enough and, he was behind still on child support payments for her, wasn't paying her college education and everything. Another part is like, well, maybe he just like shuffled the money and put it somewhere else, and maybe that's why the rental was in. My ex-husband pretended that he wasn't working, and he had his whole mother buy him a house and everything. It's like, oh, that's my mom's house, not my. So I know the kinds of things sometimes that some men that have a lot of money like to do, to act like they don't have money, particularly when there's child support involved. But more importantly, the whole thing about don't believe children, that children lie about being molested. So
Yeah, I have to check that out. I've been seeing on the internet, people have been talking about that. I want to see that episode when he actually talks about that. But let me get back to what I was saying. I feel like he was almost as hated just as much as Tommy Sotomayor. You know who Tommy is, right?
I do not. I keep hearing that name brought up in another man, David something. That was the last name to see. I'm not familiar with those people.
He's and I could definitely see someone killing Tommy. Definitely. I don't think it's a reach. I think that the irony is there. Like for a woman who's a quote unquote plus size, the same type of woman that he made fun of, who was a nurse. He always had some kind of stuff to say about a nurse, that they would set him up, find out that he likes to, do cocaine. He likes a little nose candy, and then spike his stuff with fentanyl. I don't think that's a reach. I think that some women hate him enough that they would kill him. And it would be relatively easy to do that way. Are you talking all that stuff, but you're in here with his plus size woman, let me give him some bad coke. I don't think it's a reach.
We don't kill, we divest. Like I said, I don't think Black women sit around, or our first option is aggression or murdering someone. I think we're more likely to divest and talk about the fact that that person en masse, that person is terrible, or then make generalizations. But we're more likely to walk away than to say, hey, we're going to find a way to off someone. And I say that as an Aries, which is difficult to say.
Yeah, I don't know about all that, man. Al Green.
Yeah, let me just comment on
Al Green was the only Black man who got hot grits thrown on him, for real though. Or wasn't the only person who got beat up. I mean, some woman took off on Tommy. I had shared it with the group some months ago. Like, he literally got into a physical fight with Tommy on this one show. Like, started swinging on him. He called her out her name though, and then she took off on him, and they was fighting. It was so embarrassing, and he filed charges too. So, yeah, there are Black women who will take off on you when they don't like what you're saying. They will beat you up. They'll try to hurt you. I think it's true.
Only part of it that I disagree with is calling it an assassination, because I don't see him as a person that even comes close to the significance of being assassinated. He could be killed. He could be a victim of homicide. But assassination, I think of that in a political context.
Mm-hmm.
The state doesn't care. He's not bringing Black people together. He's not doing anything that threatens the status quo at all.
No, I'm not
creating the same.
That's what I'm saying, Bob.
I was trying to make light of it because that's what his followers were saying. He got assassinated. So I was just using the same verbiage as them. No, I hear you though.
That's kind of like gets to a comment you made earlier that I was going to interject on. I mean, he doesn't really have a distinguishable legacy at all. His legacy is the same as every other beauty standard or metric that we use. Even his comments about a penis are the same exact standards that Black men are held to. So, like, there's nothing that he's doing that's original.
Nah.
It's all the same. There's no legacy. He's just the latest in the line. I can't give him credit like that. He doesn't deserve it.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Sammy is only one man. That ideology that he's been promoting has been around for decades. He's basically just spewing it out in modern day time. And about Cynthia G, to be honest with you, I don't hear nobody talk about Cynthia G. And I'm a Black woman. I just learned about who she was, and I don't see her on TikTok. Do you? I don't see her anywhere. If anything, I think she'd be on her YouTube or whatever the case may be. But have you ever seen anybody say or repeat anything Cynthia G said?
some of that's a whataboutism, though. You can have
Yeah.
we can objectively say there are Black women who absolutely their entire following is based on hating Black men. Yes, 100%. We acknowledge that, but we're not talking about that right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to push back a little bit, Bobby, on you saying his legacy. When I see more than one Black man making Kevin Samuels in his suit with the Band-Aid on his finger looking at his cell phone. It's their profile picture now. Sorry, bro. I gotta push back. That's legacy, bro.
Is it?
You got people changing the profile picture to Kevin Samuels in a suit with a Band-Aid on his finger, looking at his cell phone.
Okay, didn't you have a friend on here? We won't say his name. That's problematic as hell. That people were taking pictures just like him on the ground. Is that a legacy also? Okay, I just want to make sure all legacies matter.
Yes.
I don't know who y'all talking about, but I'm gonna keep on moving.
But Logic does.
Yes. He went viral, man. He had the challenge, man. He had a challenge, bro. When you got a
that was for my sister Carmelita.
Oh man. You know what? That's a good example, though. I want to make a transition so we can go towards the plan of action, because in all seriousness, we have groups of Black people in our community, like men, specifically men, since we're talking about men, who continue this stuff because that's the attention we give them. So when we're talking about the person who was laid out and had the challenge and everything, like, we continuously, feed them to keep them, doing stupid stuff. So we can just sit back and encourage that crap. And I think that we do it for the Tommies, we do it for the Kevins, we do it for, a lot of people in our community. And we need to take some responsibility about being what we consume and then what we also encourage too. Because, us as a community, we have a tendency sometimes to encourage some of the most disappointing and embarrassing stuff, man. We be like, you know what I'm saying, just encouraging our people to keep it up. And we got to admit that sometimes we can be collectively, we can be some irresponsible consumers.
Of course.
I want to get to this one question because I'm not familiar with the gentleman, but I can honestly say I do not revel in anyone's demise. And as far as him being a jerk, the world is bespeckled with them. Example, 2 guys from the Catholic school I attended raped me. Trigger warning. I could believe that all men are predatory and abusive, but that isn't realistic. In fact, one of my assailants begged for my forgiveness the following summer after surviving a near overdose before graduation. Something happened to that fellow, which prompted me. Okay. And then
can't be the rest of it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's some heavy stuff right there. Y'all ready to let's anything? Why we get into anything before we go into the plan of action? What y'all think?
And I probably could, but I do it on after Seed Talk after dark probably. Cause it's a little more. I'll probably do it. I'll pass on that. I came late, so I'll have to pass on to the next one.
Yeah, I'll go first real quick just to get it started because everyone's rushing to the mic to tell about the plan of action. But I just think that we got to be conscious consumers and watch what we consume and see are we instigating and we encouraging, people to put out poor product. That's and I be asking myself that, a lot too. Sometimes I evaluate my timeline and I see how much like street fights are on my timeline. I notice there's not a lot of street fights on my timeline. Like I don't like to sit back and watch that, but I will watch a boxing match with a referee in it on pay-per-view in a minute. So I always take that into, consideration. Like what kind of music am I listening to? What kind of music am I consuming? What kind of viewing am I consuming? Like, why am I so attracted to BMF and Snowfall and Power? You know, these are like these drug cartel, you know, soap operas. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'll get down with some Ozark too, which is, you know, white folks, you know, selling drugs to each other too. But
Yeah.
but why do I like to consume that kind of stuff? And so every now and again, I just sit back and say, am I being a responsible, you know, consumer? And I think we all should do that. Like, am I going out of my way, you know, to consume things that are, you know, just as positive, or am I going immediately to like the normalization of alcoholism with Drink Champs? Am I spreading my variety out when I consume like certain podcasts? You know what I'm saying? You know, am I more into like the gossip, or do I go out of my way to find something that's enriching, that, you know, teaches us how to create safe places to heal and whatnot?
I think what you're saying, I think a lot of that got to do with that's why they call it a fantasy. It's supposed to be your escape. But the thing is, some people don't know how to distinguish the difference between a fantasy and reality. They bring their fantasies into their reality, and that's when a lot of problems tend to come up. A lot of stuff is for entertainment, but not to be taken seriously. But unfortunately, we have people who indulge so much into it that they made it their own persona, even take over their whole character. So I think that's why you probably do entertainment, but I don't think you running no drug dealer on off the line, offline. I don't think you're doing any of that. But it was just an escape, just simply an escape. But fortunately, there are people who make it too much of a reality. That's why a lot of people tend to blame violence and whatever, or music, or movies, or rap songs, when actually they're just supposed to be for entertainment purposes. But unfortunately, there are people who don't know how to. I don't want to use that word. Don't know how to don't want to make that distinguish between those two. That's just my point of view on that one.
Mm-hmm. What you think the plan of action is, Doc, Bobby?
Dr. Me or Dr. Diamond?
No, well, I was just saying, Doc.
Yeah, JD's also.
You're a doctor now, Bobby?
Just saying.
PhD.
Just saying. I don't know who he's talking
philosophy.
to. Okay. I guess for me, I'll say this. I'm not going to cap. I think that on a personal level, it's fine to have preferences. It's fine to say that you want to be with this kind of person, and they have certain things they must have. If you include the career, then fine. Okay. But I think where we get into danger is where one takes their personal preferences and puts them out into the world as an objective standard that all people must aspire to. And I think that what's really dangerous in our culture now is that people can create any standard for their preferences, and they can put them out there in the world and create them as a metric or as an actual average. And when I look at what Mr. Samuels was doing, it was almost like he was suggesting that if you were not an elite person, then you were not deserving of partnership. And so, like I was saying earlier, if we get to that place, then, he made comments about a man's body, like are men willing to accept the standard where they have a certain marker that they have to meet? I don't know that would be objectively fair, since you don't necessarily have control over those metrics that women might be looking for from men. But by the same token, as a man, you have to consider that same thing for women. Are the things that you're requesting reasonable? Are they things that those people have full control over? Are those things that really matter in the end? Is all the things that we look for in life, are they things that make it past the first 10 years of our marriage, or are they things that we should actually be able to count on until we're dead? And why is it that all of the people, all of the social media grifters, and that's what I call them, why are they all so focused on 1/10 of your 1/10 or 1/15 or whatever of your relationship? And why are we allowing that small fraction to become the most significant one? Okay, when you're 18, I get that. When you're 18, if you're a woman and you say, I want a guy with washboard abs, and that's going to be the reason that I pick my partner. Okay, you're 18. Bet. Go ahead. Experience that. I understand that. But if you're 37 years old as a man or 42 and you're out here saying that I'm only going to consider this woman if her bust to waist ratio is what I want, then I have concerns about your readiness to be a partner anyways. I have concerns about, frankly, where your brain is at this point and what you project moving forward in time. So maybe the plan of action is to teach our young people that it's fine to have the carnal knowledge and carnal desire, but it can't be the thing that guides you in life. It can't be the thing that controls who your partner is for the rest of your life. It can't be the way that you decide who's going to be the person that you spend the most time with. That would be my plan of action.
Yeah, I like that. That was good. That was good stuff. What you think, Dr. Diamond?
I'm all over the place with what I think right now, but first, I think people need to be more discerning with these gurus on social media. I don't know why people have suddenly lost all common sense. Look at people's qualifications. Anyone can say anything online, but follow up and find out about the person's background and qualifications before you decide that everything they say applies to your case. Also, conversely, if you're going to follow people that represent the demographic that they're speaking for. It is now 2022. We still have, unfortunately, Black men telling Black women how to behave. They've never been a Black woman. They've never been a married Black woman. So I don't understand why we're still defaulting to listening to Black men on how a Black woman should get someone to marry them, get all these things. It makes no sense to me at all. Also, both of us need to stop deflecting when data or facts that back up the reality of relationships in the Black community are brought up. And most importantly, I think we need to shift in terms of reminding people, no one owes anyone a relationship. There's a good chance you may get out of this life without being in a relationship. That doesn't mean that you can't live a happy life. It doesn't mean that you are born with this appendage, therefore you get a woman. That's not how life works. It's okay. It's even okay to be alone. I mean, one of his other things was, you're going to die single and alone. And everyone dies alone anyway in the end. So yeah, and you can be single and be happy. And particularly if you're a woman, you're probably going to be happier and live longer if you're single versus the other side. So we really need to also focus on the skills to be healthy in a relationship, because we aren't doing that as well. So maybe it means listening more to people who have actually been in long-term relationships, long-term healthy relationships, not just I'm stuck with this one and I'm riding it out with them.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. That was good stuff. That's good stuff. So May 21st, life enrichment. Oh, my bad. I thought you said that you didn't want to do a plan of action because you came.
No. I'm still gonna do my thing on the next show. So I'm still gonna do my plan of action here.
Okay, let's do it. My
Here.
bad, sis. I thought you said I came late.
No. I'm gonna try to wrap it up.
Excuse me.
But anyway, let me just say this, and this is from I'm just gonna go ahead and keep it real on this one. And this may offend some people. This is what life is about. Death doesn't absolve you of the things you've done in your life. Life don't work that way. Even I had to come to that realization a couple of years ago. Granted, I'm still here, but I'm talking about other people that I've known that passed away, and people didn't have good things to say about them. And at first I was like, well, damn, that's fucked up. But I realized these people know this person, and not from a different way than I knew this person. So I don't think that's my place to tell someone you shouldn't say that, because obviously they're feeling some kind of way about that person. And when we are, and while we are here, we want to live the best way we could possibly can as human beings. I don't think no one want to leave this world where people are rejoicing our graves. I don't think no one wants that for themselves. At least that's not nobody's intention will want to do that. So while we are here, I think us as individuals should try to solve more problems than create them.
Yeah.
And with that said, for anyone who is dealing with any type of trauma or any type of pain, and I think that's kind of part of life, especially you live to see 56, 57. To me, that's still extremely young in my opinion, because my parents just 60. I find that quite young in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, but with that being said, please get that, whatever you're going through, whatever that's tormenting you, please get that under wraps and put that in a coffin instead of your body.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's real spills. Like who you want to be remembered, you know what I'm saying, for what you did on this planet when you pass away. Like I used to tell people all the time. Yeah. I used to tell people all the time, I'm thinking about what people are gonna say at my funeral, and they ain't gotta lie.
Yeah.
When it's time to go up there and get on the mic. I don't want people, like, you know what I'm saying, to have to lie and be up there, you know what I'm saying, capping on the mic, talking about, well, Logic was a good guy, this, that, and third. I want that to come, you know what I'm saying, from their heart. You know what I'm saying?
Really, like true story. I'm not sure if anyone heard of this. Like, this happened in Houston a few years back. This he was a white family, by the way, and he passed away, and they took a whole newspaper still in, and his children slandered the hell out of him of all the things he did. It was I'm dead serious. Y'all laughing, but those kids, whatever he did to them kids or whatever happened, them kids were pissed off, and they had an ugly obituary. I probably find that link. Anyone who live in Texas know what I'm talking about. People who live in Texas alone know what I'm talking about. And I was like, damn, that sucks. I would hate if I had kids, my kids slander me like that. But I'm just saying, people just need to keep that in mind sometimes.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind, how you treat people.
How
you behave towards people too plays a big role in it. And it's just in terms of your inner circle, but even people that you don't know, or people that you not physically attracted to, or wouldn't be friends with.
I agree with you. That's why Bobby need to be nicer to me, man.
I think don't they play a whole role?
Nicer to me.
It's all jealousy, Logic. You got a reverse compliment. Just a reverse compliment. You know, you have to take it for what it's worth.
Soft flattery is soft flattery.
I'm just upset with gray hair.
Bobby, our gray hair is a sign of wisdom.
You know, so
that's a sign of wisdom. I got one to go all the way up here, and it's long, and I saw it the other night. I'm like, I'll be damned, but I earned it.
Well, a couple things. Another good episode of Seed Talk. It was great, and we got after Seed Talk coming up right after this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna let it play while I cook my dinner and while I do my laundry. That's my more of a routine. But also May 21st. Thank you, Umar, for teaching me that repetition. May 21st, Life Enrichment Bookstore. May 21st, 5 p.m. We are having a grill party experience. Come on down. It's going to be an open mic. It will be an open mic. Life Enrichment Bookstore, May 21st. And but it's also going to be a marketplace too. The marketplace starts at 2 p.m. It's going to 8. So you can get down there and support some Black businesses. And then at 5 o'clock, there is going to be spoken word storytelling theater with the grill party. So thank you again, Dr. Diamond, Precious, Bobby. We out. We'll
Gonna be here.
Or maybe next
Give
week.
us 10 minutes.
Peace.